If today is your first time here, kindly hit on the subscribe button in order to be notified with our new video. Welcome to Success Series. Today we are going to talk about IAS 16, property, plant and equipment. Now let's dive into today's lesson. Now the objective of IAS 16 is to prescribe the accounting treatments for property, plant and equipment. And we are going to look at the following principal issues. Number one, we'll look at the recognition of assets. Then we'll look at the determination of current amount. Then finally, we'll look at the depreciation charges. Now let's start with the definition for property, plant and equipment. It's very important we understand the definition of property, plant and equipment. Now, property, plant and equipment, which we say for short PPE, they are tangible assets that are held for use. Now, when we say tangible assets here, it implies that they are assets that we can touch them, we can feel, we can see them. And here it should be held for use, which will be in production or supply of goods and services, or for rentals to others, or for administrative purposes. And finally, it is expected to be used for more than one period. It's expected to be used for more than one period, which makes it a non-current asset over here. Now let's look at the recognition criteria of PPE. When are we expected to recognize PPE in our financial statement? Number one, we recognize PPE when we see that it is probable that future economic benefits associated with the item will flow to the entity. It implies that there must be a benefit which will emit from that particular item of PPE. Then the second one is that the cost can be measured reliably. The cost can be measured reliably. Now let's dive into how the cost will be measured reliably over here. So without going us to the initial measurement. Initial measurement of PPE is measured at what? Cost. And cost has three components. Let's look at the various three components. You said that cost comprises of first purchase price. Then you add your directly attributable what? Cost. Then you add removal or dismantling cost. Now let's take each of the elements into more perspective. Now let's start with the purchase price. We are basically talking about the price at which you acquire that particular PPE item for. In adjusting for the purchase price, we said you need to add import duty. That is in the case whereby you imported a particular item of PPE into the country. You have to add the import duty to the purchase price, or any non-refundable purchase tax as well. It needs to also be added. Non-refundable purchase tax are taxes you have paid that you're not going to get back, basically. So we have to add them together. I also have to less trade discounts and rebates. Rebates here are also forms of deductions that we get when we acquire an item. So here we add the import duty and the non-refundable purchase taxes, and then we less trade discounts and rebates. Secondly, we have directly attributable cost. Now this cost, we are saying that this cost must bring the particular asset to its present location and condition. And then we say with directly attributable cost, you won't incur this particular asset if you didn't acquire that particular item of PPE. Let's look at some of the examples. Here we have cost of site preparation, and here basically comes to be when you are building or constructing a building. So if you are constructing a building, you need to clear the site. So this cost of site preparation would have come into being if you didn't have the intention of building. And also we have professional fees. Here in the case whereby you have acquired an item and you need a professional to install it into your organization, you have to incur what the cost we call professional fees, a fee that you incur in order for the person to actually come and work on that particular item of PPE for it to work. Now the next one is initial delivery and handling. So in the case whereby you have ordered the item, you need to pay some form of an initial delivery cost on it. This amount of money will form part of what the directly attributable cost. Also installation cost. Probably you have brought the item into the organization, you need to install it into the client. Any cost you incur on the installation is part of the directly attributable cost. Then we have assembly cost. And here with assembly cost, mostly items being purchased outside, basically in terms of cars, are brought in its separate form. So once they are brought, you need to fix them or assemble them together. So any cost you incur in assembling the parts of the asset together in order for it to work, we will also classify it as a directly attributable cost. Now we also have removal or dismantling cost. And here we said removal and dismantling costs these are future costs that we incur in order to remove or dismantle that particular item of PPE. Now, in view of this, is their future cost, we need to discount to the present, and then we'll add their present values to the cost of the PPE or the cost of the item of PPE over here. And then once you are adding, you are also expected to set up an equivalent liability for it. Now remember, I said the removal or dismantling costs are future costs that we need to discount to present. How are we going to discount to present? We apply a factor we call the discount factor, and the mathematical formula is 1 out of 1 plus r raised to the power n, where r here is the rate or the cost of capital, and then n is the number of years. Now let's dive into a question. You have been talking, so let's dive into a question. So the question reads: Success Series started constructing a building for its own use on 1st January 2020 and incurred the following cost. So we have purchase price of the land, stamp duty, legal fees, site preparation and clearance, materials, architecture fees, general overheads, labor spanning from a period of 1st January 2020 to 1st April 2021. Let's look at the additional information. The additional information item is telling us that material costs were greater than anticipated. It was found later that materials costing 10,000 had been spent and therefore wasted, and a further 15,000 was incurred as a result of faulty design work. As a result of these problems, work on the building ceased for 2 weeks during July 2020, and it's estimated that labor cost of 9,000 related to that period. The building was completed on 1st April 2021 and occupied on 1st June 2021. Required: calculate the cost of the PPE, or the cost of the building in this case. So we are required to look at the cost of it. Now let's look at the various items and whether we are going to include them or not. So here, let's start with the item. So we know that purchase price of the land will form part of the purchase price, so we are going to include this one. Stamp duty here is a directly attributable cost on the document that we use, so definitely we incur. Any legal fees we incur in connection with the constructing of a building here, we also have to add this one. Now with the site preparation and clearance here, we have to clear the site before we can work on it, so here this is also going to form part of the item of PPE. Material. So let's look at the additional information. The additional information told us that materials costing, we're told that materials costs were greater than anticipated. It was later found that material costing 10,000 and then what 15,000. The 10,000 here was spot, and then a further wasted and therefore wasted, and then a further 15,000 was for design works. Now since these items were sports, we need to exclude them from the materials we have. So when we come back to this question, we have to exclude the materials over here, so we'll pick the 100,000, then we exclude the ones which were faulty and then the wasted. We have to exclude them from this material over here. You have to exclude them from the material. Now let's look at architecture fees. So your architecture fees here is a professional fees here, so we have to include it. What about general overheads? General overheads here, overheads are basically indirect costs, and you see the name is general, so it means it cannot be attributable to a particular item. So this one we have to exclude it. We are not going to bring the general overheads. We are not going to bring general overheads. Now what about labor? There was some additional information item on labor. Let's look at it. We're told that labor, as a result of this problem, works on the building ceased for 2 weeks during July 2020, and it is estimated that the labor cost of 9,000 related to this period. So meaning 9,000 was for a period in which they didn't work. So since they didn't work on the building for that period, and that 9,000 needs to be what excluded. So this 9,000 we excluded from our labor amount of what 150. Now let's dive into the solution. Once you have understood what we need to do, let's dive into the solution. So the answer is, we'll first bring our purchase price of the land, which we have established already. Then we add the various components. We are going to add the stamp duty, legal fees, site preparation and clearance. Now let's look at the materials. The materials here, we brought the amount, which was 100,000, then we less the waste and then the faulty design works, which was the 10,000 and then 15,000 respectively. We less them from the 100,000, we get 75,000. We bring the architecture fees, which was the 20,000. Now labor, some part of labor was idle, so we need to subtract the 9,000 from the 150,000. Then we had 141,000. Afterwards, we have to sum all of them up, and then we get 519,000. And this becomes our cost of the building. Thank you.